So hi, welcome to my presentation for digital marketing practice. Today I'm going to deliver this over Zoom. I'm going to hope that the technology works well for me, and I'm just going to do a screen share to go to my presentation just now. So fingers crossed this does what I want it to do. So here we go. So this is the start of my presentation. First of all, I'm going to start by introducing the topic for my website and blog, which is student unions. The question and the tagline to that kind of being, what exactly do they do? It is a question that I frequently get asked when I say that I am part of a student union, and no one really attempts to answer it. And the few that do don't answer it that well. So, an introduction, the client is a student union member, someone who wants to raise awareness of what student unions do, in particular the student union that is attached to the University of the West of Scotland. So they are two separate kind of bodies, if you like. The union is actually a registered charity within its own right, and that also is not a well-known fact, and there is a great mystery from staff and students as to what the union actually does. Some people think that the union is very well staffed, and it's not. There are lots of conversations around the learning experience and the student wider experience, and there is a perception that much of that falls within the remit of the student union. And student unions in general are actually something that's really important to student voice and student representation, and the client would like to make people more aware of the journey and what is involved within student unions, having worked there as an elected officer for 2 years. So the purpose of the website blog is really to increase awareness. It's about raising the profile of the student union. It's more than that though, because there are lots of student unions across Scotland and the UK, and they all kind of seem to have kind of similar problems. In particular, UWS has got a very mixed kind of campus model. They have a great number of home students, they have a great number of international students. They all come and study a variety of different programmes and at different levels. And the client is frustrated overall by the term that's kind of attached to students, and the fact that there are assumptions made around what students would like and students interact and what students do, and that typically is becoming an increasingly outdated kind of opinion. Rather than thinking of students as students, we should be thinking of students as learners, and that is something that the client would like to explore as part of the content of the blog and as part of the ongoing conversation with the people who interact. So market research for student unions, because one of the key milestone things that student unions do is they elect officers annually. Across the board and in the sector, which is quite a niche area, there is typically only a 10% voter turnout. Last year, the student union at UWS recorded 11% of turnout, which is 1,622 students. Now, that means that a staggering 89% of students didn't vote at all, and no one really knows the reasons as to why they didn't vote. They know that there are issues with student engagement. They know that traditionally there are groups of students that will engage. So students who are active and interested in politics, for example, will make up a good proportion of the demographic of student officers across the country on a yearly basis. Students who are typically mature, part-time, distance learners, research students, PhD students, students that are disabled, students from any LGBT plus background, anything really that touches on wider characteristics tends to be where the voter numbers fall down, and there's nothing really being done to address that. So the client would like to make people more aware of what student unions do, but the purpose is not to encourage people to run in elections. The purpose is really to make staff, students, everyone across the sector more knowledgeable of what it is actually like to be a sabbatical officer and what that journey involves. When it comes to thinking about terminology, buzzwords, things that people search, Google Trends shows that student union buzzword is freshers, and from speaking to students, it would appear that they associate freshers as being the main activity when they think of student unions. They don't think of the other things that student unions do, and it appears that they don't search for it also. When it comes to searching for the terminology, because there's a whole range that the union goes under, so it goes by SAWS, SAUWS, it goes by Students Association, it goes by SU, it goes by Your Union UWS. So there is definitely a bit of a conflict when it comes around to branding. UWS actually comes out as something that is more consistently searched, which really just means that the focus on any content is really going to have to use the right terminology and be looking at the right search parameters. Unsurprisingly, you can see that over the kind of course of 5 years, freshers has a peak of kind of key activity, less so this year, which is notable because of the pandemic, and that's obviously had a knock-on effect when it comes to people engaging with their students' union and actually engaging in freshers. And you can see that there's an actual significant drop, which actually means in terms of that engagement, there's probably a lot less students that would have engaged with the students' union through freshers that haven't at this point in time, which makes the purpose of spreading the message about students' unions just a little bit more challenging. So the website design that I have opted for, and I've got some slides which will kind of show the basic outline. I've went for a simple design and a clear kind of colour palette, so really utilising contrasting colours, white on black, little kind of pops of eye-catching colour, making sure it's nice and easy to read. I've branded in a small logo, which is also included on the social network, just on Facebook, because for the other social networks, the client has asked for something that is really transparent and authentic, because the purpose of the piece is actually to raise awareness around their particular journey. So it didn't really make that much sense to go and make a whole load of kind of background or secondary Twitter or LinkedIn accounts, when actually it's a really good opportunity to explore the client's actual brand on the social media channels, apart from Facebook, that they already have. So posted some starter content, which has been in the purpose of blogs, and had a proofread at that, because that's obviously going to be really important for people coming in, and tested the forums to make sure that they work. The client is very keen that people come in, have a look, perhaps leave a comment on the blog, or actually get in touch if they've got a specific question after having read the blog content about student unions in general. And whilst the client has got experience of University of the West of Scotland, they are in contact with other student unions and may be able to answer or direct their question. So it really is about encouraging interaction once we've got the initial content down there. The blogs are featured front and centre. The client had lots of things that they wanted to put on the website because there are very many different areas and points of conversation, but it was resulting in a very crowded kind of wireframe, very crowded and really difficult to negotiate and navigate. So for the moment, focusing on the blogs, getting them front and centre, and hoping that that encourages good engagement with people perhaps even sharing their stories. Some simple photos for the moment, just so that people see that it's relatable. Again, the client has got a real focus on students and actually avoiding the typical kind of stance of students and the typical portrayal of that. Simple layout, simple domain name, chosen on purpose to be very generic, so studentsunion.co.uk. There are lots of students' unions. It could be anybody's student union. You might be looking for your own specific union and land on this page. You might then be encouraged to have a look. So it was done with intention. Started SEO, so having a look around keywords and really trying to just, like I said, focusing on the keywords that are going to be important, realising that some of them are going to be less important, and actually there doesn't appear to be a typical set of student words, if you like. I think people fall into students' unions perhaps more by chance than anything else, and that's certainly reflective of the client's experience. Focused on user needs, so quick and simple. Students typically are very time poor, they've got a limited attention span, and really kind of focusing in on that. The content produced so far has tried to grab the readers with humour, which can be a bit dangerous. but we'll see how that goes. That's the beauty of having some analytics. And the client is not a typical student, again, really reinforcing that issue that no one is. The landscape is changing dramatically in terms of the student context, with Brexit, with COVID, with a switch to blended learning, with not being on campus. And there are so many things and so many topics of conversation that actually there should be lots of different ways to reach people and get them involved. So this is just some screenshots of the website. We've got that logo up top, we've got some simple headings, we've got the photos which go through in a reel, just so you can have a look through, and then straight down into the blog posts. So really trying to grab their attention quite quickly as soon as they land on that page. And then the blog posts are short at the moment, so we have one 2-minute one, one 1-minute one, a bit sparse in the content at the moment, but that is something that can be worked upon ahead of the report. For the marketing mix, the client really is not so much selling something, like I've alluded to already. It is really about raising awareness. So actually in terms of a kind of 4 Ps model, we probably need to look at something that's wider than that, really looking across the kind of 7 Ps. And it needs to incorporate a real mix of kind of content and things that have been considered. So I've got on the slide there for different images, different videos, different opportunities to share and different platforms, because students are not typical, and I don't think that using just one, I don't think they're all just going to gravitate towards the website, for example, or they're all going to gravitate towards Facebook. They might be bigger users of Facebook than anticipated, because UWS, if we're focusing predominantly there, does have a larger number of mature students. Mature students do tend to align with Facebook age group. But that said, we're also in the period of COVID where people are engaging with things like TikTok and Instagram and doing things that they wouldn't usually do, particularly with the prolonged kind of lockdown. So in terms of the product, it really is raising awareness. It's not so much a kind of customer service aspect, if you like, but there is that kind of Q&A aspect to it. So finding out knowledge, gaining knowledge, perhaps sharing that knowledge. So you might then come along, see the content that's there and want to share it with someone else. In terms of promotion, really using the network that's already there. I think the class reps that are already there and engaged with the student union, because they would typically be the ones that would go and continue through the voting process, will very much be ones to tap into, and hopefully that will also organically spread the message. There isn't really anything kind of price related. It's a free resource. Most things to do with student unions are free resources because of the charitable status, and that's absolutely fine. There's not going to be anything to sell. It could be a platform for fundraising. We're not quite at the point where the client needs to fundraise. A lot of the funding does come in, organically from the university, and it's there. Place is important. Segmented channels, absolutely, definitely considering those different opportunities and the ways that people interact. As the analytics come through, that is going to help to inform which channels are going to be more relevant to which content. So actually trying to post different content on different channels to see the result. Focusing on the people. I think there is a big aspect of people within students and breaking down the barrier that there are not typical students and that the client is not a typical student. And it's actually really important to get that message across, and where possible to get other people to share that message. It is very much a project of passion, to be honest. It does sit because the client does worry about the changing kind of landscape of education, of learning, of student representation. Student representation is something that really is a kind of, it's a cornerstone of the students' union's work, but it's often alluded to be, people think it's for parties, and it's simply not. There are lots of statistics out there for actual physical evidence around these things. I think there's a real benefit in getting others to share their story, and I'm hoping that that's what the website and the blog will encourage people to do. For SEO, like I've said, there's not an actual, kind of top 5 kind of keywords. Other kind of things would be easier to simply produce a list of kind of key topics. There isn't as much of an obvious one in terms of students and searching in courses. It does go in trends of the academic cycle, so you find things like freshers are more popular at particular points in the year. Things like graduations, more popular at particular points in the year. What Google Trends did reveal was that there are actually lots of kind of categories coming off of that. So where people were searching UWS, they were then actually maybe going on to search UWS library catalogue, they were going on to search UWS enrolment. So it was actually then starting to be searches around the specifics of the student journey, and those did relate to UWS. Now, I've not looked at those for other universities, but I imagine a similar pattern is going to be there, that people will search for things around their student journey as they go through it. So as it's assessment time, it might be the referencing guide they're searching. As it's feedback time, they might be looking towards the feedback in the grading process. So things like Google Analytics, Google Trends, Google Search Console, Ubersuggest and WooRank are going to be really important when it comes to developing the actual brands, the blogs and the brand of those and the content. There's going to be lots of different topics covered between now and the actual report being produced. So it's going to be really important that these kind of keywords are in there, that where things can be optimised, they are, where videos are optimised, the background's got the SEO in it, so that the search rankings are increased. At the moment, when you go on and you Google specifically just for kind of students, what you see is NUS comes up, and NUS as a whole other actual conversation when it comes to like the Brexit divide and Scotland and England and things being relatable. So there is a good opportunity to promote the website and actually the content for people. I think at the current climate, it's going to be really important to actually do some scanning of daily media, responding by blogging, posting and sharing where possible. There are lots of conversations around students in general at the moment and coming up in the future. So really important to tap into those and actually not to think too far ahead. When it comes to the actual Google Analytics side of things, due to time constraints, you can see that there was very, very little interaction actually on the website. Today, with a bit of focus, which actually came about from kind of jumping onto a tweet that was about people not knowing that people were part of a student union. The following results have been able to be produced, which has actually shown that the content is reaching people and can reach people when it's posted. The key would be to post it and when. So 54 users, 61 sessions, 136 page views. Bounce rate's 57.38, so not quite where I would want it to be. Average session duration is about a minute, so again, not quite where I would want it to be. It's quite challenging to produce a blog that is 1 minute short, but that might be where we need to go, and hopefully as people see the different topics, they will jump about that. The age range is an all right kind of starting point, considering that there is limited content on there, and it's landed all right in terms of gender split, so it's been representative as much as it possibly could there. What was surprising is that Android has come out as the kind of top browser, which I wasn't anticipating. To be honest, I hadn't even considered it, although I, background thought about it, but where I really made the crucial error so far has been around actually not considering how the website looked on mobile. And there is obviously a big percentage of mobile people that have interacted, and the focus so far has been on perfecting the desktop view. So based on these analytics, I've actually been able to go back, go into Wix and make some changes to actually optimise that experience just for mobile, and I know that that will need to be a focus going forward. I can see that social media has brought in a lot of the interaction to the page, which is great, just need to maintain that and develop that, which I've already alluded to. So in terms of improvement, need more content, need creation of goals and analytics, because once things are written, they are much more likely to be achieved. Need to have a consistent approach to reach the aim in terms of raising awareness. So those page views that we have today really need to be capitalised on tomorrow with more content. Need to see development in terms of the reach in the UK. Right now it's all kind of been around the kind of Glasgow area, which is fine, it's a great starting point, but we have student unions and students all up and down the country. Need to focus not just on the desktop view, which I've already mentioned, that's definitely been an error in my part. Need to develop design skills and continue to work on website development and Wix. So I think there is definitely more that can be done, and I'll move on to just discuss a little bit about that further shortly. Need to be checking the project on a daily basis. It really at this point in time is a moment of recovering lost ground. Need to engage users every day and really develop the marketing mix and maximise the social networking reach for blog posts, actually thinking of building suspense and letting people know what's coming next. In terms of further development, the project on reflection is actually one that should reflect the client's brand. It's a really good opportunity to do that, as much as it will also raise awareness of student unions and what they do. There is a very simplistic brand in place. I'd like to develop that by the time we get to the point of the report. On reflection should probably have included some materials around the election that was used and the manifesto that the client produced, because these very much give a flavour of the brand. It's a bit like producing an expansive CV, going round in detail in the role, as much as it's a bit of a skills showcase as well. So I'd really like the brand to be reflective of the consistency and reflect the humour that is in the content to match the written word. So making sure that these things match something that's fun and engaging, but not like boring and, you know, I don't know, we want it to be reflective for everybody. I need to be more vocal in sharing work with class and using the sessions as a mean to do this. I think I've mentioned class reps. I think they would be number one kind of people that I should be engaging with, because they already have a vested interest in the student union for one reason or another. In conclusion, time is going to be really important. So revisiting and improving the wireframe, adding additional pages. There are definitely many more things and more areas of focus that could go into this web page, but it is a case of developing it up one page at a time, rather than just taking an approach where we throw it all on, because that's not going to improve it any better. It's just going to make the bounce rate worse. Develop a content plan for the remainder of the term to maximise the analytical experience of the report. I do think it needs to be reviewed every few days, given that time is now critical. Mentioned social media already. There's going to be lots of things coming up in terms of students returning over the winter break, returning for T2, not returning for T2, testing. Students have been vilified in the media kind of up until this point, so there are definitely talking points there that are wider than what does the Students' Union do, but these will help to get people engaged. Encourage the class to engage with the content, in turn engage with theirs, might learn something new. Engage in my personal network. So there are other key partners that I have not touched base with yet, so particularly with Sparks, because they've got an international reach. NUS, haven't made them aware of the project, probably could. UWS, Glasgow Student Forum, so connecting with all of our local officers. Definitely things that I could do. The kind of rush that I had to get some analytics on the page has I've only burned up, you know, a very small percentage of my actual network. So I need to go back, revisit that, and actually make sure that the content is on point for a wider audience. That is me for today. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed learning about my project.